I finally got to try out the Moondrop Aria in some capacity. I bought a copy of the Snow Edition and I've spent the past few days with it. How does it compare to the more recent offerings, and are they worth upgrading from? Let's find out in my review of the legendary Moondrop Aria Snow Edition. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and I know I'm a little bit late to the party, but I did at least want to try out the Moondrop Snow Edition Aria because they look amazing and they have been praised by so many people. I felt I needed to get my hands on some. They can be found for around £60, which puts them in contention with sort of the SIMGOT EW200, the FIO FD11 and the KZ ZS10 Pro. When I first got my first pair of IEMs, I bought the ZS10 Pro over the Aria because it was a more complex hardware setup and I preferred the look of them. And looking back at these, I'm glad I did. The Aria SE is a single dynamic setup, which is more basic than the ZS10 Pros, but does fall in line more of what the EW200 SIMGOTs from a hardware perspective is like. You get a really cool included hard shell case, which is small enough to be carried around in sort of jean pockets and stuff like that. You get a decent included cable. It's actually very similar to the EW2s, and you get spring tips, which was great because I got to try out spring tips for the first time, which I really rather enjoyed. They're a weird sticky kind of texture that grip into your ear pretty well, and I feel like they have to because actually the IEMs themselves don't create an amazing fit in your ear. They're relatively shallow nozzled, meaning that they don't sit in amazingly. You kind of need to have good tips for these to work properly, and the spring tips do a good job of that. The shells are light, inoffensive, they got this cool light design to them, and there have been talks about paint chips, which is a real shame. I thankfully haven't had any issues with mine, but I really haven't owned them for long enough for that to be a potential issue. And yeah, they look great, they feel great, they're very light. Like I said, the shell won't fit everyone else's ears because there's a possibility that because they're so shallow, they just don't sit properly. The ear hooks obviously help with this, and using proper tips also helps. I didn't find any discomfort or fatigue wearing mine, but your mileage may vary. Sound-wise, I instantly recognised the super flat profile these things have. There's not loads of bass, there's not loads of treble, there's a decent amount of mid-range. It's a very, very almost accurate, neutral, natural, inoffensive target, and it works really well. It's very similar to the 7Hz Zeros, but with a bit more resolution and a bit more soundstage. They are kind of like the logical step up from 7Hz Zeros. And yeah, there's just nothing really crazy to say about them. I prefer the ZS10 Pros because they are more V-shaped, they are more fun sounding, and you get more bass. These don't have loads of bass. There's enough bass, I guess, for most people, but bass heads don't even bother. Yeah, it's a really weird sensation. They are very, very flat, which makes them great for gaming. Stuff like CSGO, Valorant, amazing for finding footsteps. Imaging is great, so you can hear stuff coming up from around you. And actually from mixing and making a lot of these videos, I've been using the Aria. They work great for that as well. But they aren't super immersive. They don't have ridiculous soundstage. They have okay soundstage, but it's not ridiculous. There's not enough bass for my personal taste, and the bass shelf as well, the sub bass is basically non-existent. And I like a bit of sparkly treble as well. I'm more into the traditional V-shaped setup with a bit of a better mid-range. This doesn't have that, it just has lots of clarity. Instrument separation is easy to work out. It's pretty good from a technical standpoint, but it's, you know, it's £50, £60, so don't expect the world. It's decent, but it's not amazing. Comparing them to the EW200, I would definitely take that set over this. I prefer its bass response and also its sort of upper mid-range that is very, very clear. It's pretty clear with the Aria, but it's much nicer with the EW200. It's a lot smoother tuned as well. And comparing it to the EW2, which I recently reviewed, I would take that over this because it is a traditional V-shape, and I really like the traditional V-shape. If you want a flatter profile, the Aria is still a great option, but that's not personally what I'm looking for. And that's pretty much where we are with the Aria. They're good, they're decent technically, they have a pretty natural, neutral tone. They're inoffensive in pretty much every single way, from a sound standpoint, from a price standpoint, from a design standpoint. They're a safe option. There's definitely nothing wrong with them, but you kind of need to be in the market for those kinds of things if you want to buy the Aria. So that's my review of the Aria. It gets a recommendation, sort of a middle of the road recommendation. If you're after something quite a bit better, go with the EW200, and if you're after something that's maybe not quite as good from a technical standpoint, but gives you a lot more fun, I think the Chu2 is a great option for a third of the price realistically. Big thanks to you for watching. Thanks to my patrons for being continually supportive. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.